Okay. Good evening and welcome to once again another fantastic episode of Him and Her TalkSpace with me, your fantastic him host with the most, Chad Nails, Master Life Coach, and as always, my equally fantastic co-host,
Nene Hello, everyone, and thank you for joining.
All right. So, just as a quick reminder to you guys, these are going to be streaming. We are going to be having uploaded to our TalkSpace, to our Him and Her Space channel on YouTube. Find that Him and Her Spaces. That's the channel on YouTube for anybody who wishes to join, subscribe, share it all, and stuff like that. Because we have good conversations, and if you guys want to share that with people, you are more than welcome to go and check out the channel for yourself and send the link to other people, because we definitely want to have this space grow and we want to increase the awareness of some of these topics that we talk about so that our community can learn a little something or advance further on things that they have right now. So with tonight, we have a really hard-hitting subject. I've talked with people about what we were going to be talking about tonight, and the consensus was pretty uniform across the board. You know what I'm saying? Hey, we're talking about the relationship between the Black community and U.S. healthcare/medicine, and everybody was like, "Whoa, Chad, that's a hard-hitting subject." I'm like, "Yeah, that's why we got to do it." Because we have more information now, I think, in recent times than we have had, and it's coming more so to light now. But we owe it to ourselves and to the space that we created to take that and push it just a little bit further through this menu that we made, so that maybe people who haven't heard stuff on the news or who aren't checking documentaries on it, who aren't reading articles on it, but they like watching YouTube videos, or they like seeing us on Facebook or something like that, we can get it to them in that regard, in that capacity. So, with that being said, tonight, like I said, Black people and dealing with healthcare and medicine in the U.S. And it's already even just off the front of it, it's tricky as hell. It's tricky and it's dark, and there are a lot of great things that come up of it, and at the same time there's some really horrific things that come about it as well. So just at the beginning, we all know that there's a lot of bias and prejudice that's present in all aspects of this culture. But what happens when that's part of a system that can literally affect your mental and physical health? So, and of course, we're talking about things that we use as far as keeping ourselves healthy, whether it's taking care of an ongoing disease or even by a preventive measure. Unless we are doctors ourselves, we end up going to a physician, we end up going to the hospital, we end up going to specialists when we need to. And what happens when we subject ourselves as people of color, or to a system that in some cases has a very different set of rules for how to engage us as opposed to everybody else in society? And that's what we're dealing with. So first question that I have up, what's your stance on healthcare in the U.S.? Just your overall stance. We always like to hit you guys first with a general question, just to get your thoughts and your feelings involved. You like to engage your head and your heart with stuff like this. So what's your stance on healthcare in the U.S., just as a general thing? I'm just going to open this up to the space as a whole. So anybody can chime in, of course.
Can I start? This is Marcia.
We got Marcia. What you got for us?
I generally, to be quite frank, think it sucks. Our healthcare in general. I didn't really until I lived in Denmark and Europe and understood that just how differently things could function from a healthcare perspective. I feel like there's too many layers. Things are way too disjointed, when often health is more of a holistic issue. It's not just your heart, it's not just your lungs. And we have specialists for everything. And they don't often talk to each other, even in more integrated systems like Kaiser. And it makes it very difficult to actually treat a core condition. And we wait too late in the process to actually treat instead of doing things that are more preventative. So that's my thought.
Yeah. Thank you for that.
Okay. Yes, Marcia came guns drawn. She said, sucks. And I know because I've been elsewhere and it's better.
It does.
That's exactly what you said. That's what I heard. So, and thank you very much for that unique perspective on especially drawing a parallel between what we encounter here and elsewhere in the world. And that, I think that's really important to hear. So thank you for that. Anybody else before Nene and I chime in? No? Nene, what you got?
I agree. It sucks. it's horrible. Not only does it suck for just the insurance part of it, but even with, if you don't have it, like, so the what's the word I'm looking for? Social standards part of it, but even interracial disparities, it's like, because some unwritten rule that Black people don't hurt or feel pain as much as other people, even in that spectrum of it. And then if you go there, you don't have health insurance and all that stuff that happens, everything that comes around there, where other countries, I'm pretty sure like Denmark, or even I know in Canada, where there's free healthcare, and we're sitting here busting our behinds to, pay health insurance and still get treated with crappy service. So it sucks.
I gotta agree. I'm not a fan of it at all. And I try to avoid it. This is part of the problem. You know what I'm about to say. Either you said it or you got family members that said it. I try to avoid going at all costs. Unless it is, like a regularly scheduled thing. If it's something that I can tend to at home, I will figure out a way to tend to it at home.
Right.
Look, I'm not trying. This is a non-paid endorsement, but Vicks is 99.9% of things that ail us.
Right.
Right?
Ginger ale.
If it ain't some Vicks, they're putting some onions in your socks. Look.
Right.
Those remedies do work, and you know why those remedies work? Because they've been tested in the field. You know why they've been tested in the field? Because we ain't hardly ever had adequate treatment by those in the medical profession, so we had to figure out stuff.
Right. That's
real. That's history. That's why we have those home remedies, because going to the doctor, we've never been. It's just historic. It's just a historic precedent that we've encountered as men. We know, not to say that the system as a whole, or that the people within the system are as corrupt as the system itself. Because there are people that are within the system that do what they can to truly live up to that Hippocratic oath and treat everybody, the same. So I get that, but also it's like,
right.
It's an uphill battle. It really is, and it gives the impression that there's simply not enough of them to be able to make that lasting, or to make that lasting difference, or to make enough of an influence to where the Black community feels safer engaging with the medical field. So that's a really big deal. Now, Nene, you had some stats that you wanted to that you had looked up. just to kind of bring it into bring a little bit more detailed focus to some of the inaccuracies that we're encountering, and I have some that I'll be sharing later as well. But I wanted to start with yours because they do hit pretty hard.
Mm-hmm. Mine is specifically surrounding women's health, and namely pregnancy related health issues. And I found the article that says nearly 2/3 of infant deaths occur in the first month after birth, often with congenital abnormalities and complications from preterm births. These preterm births in African Americans have the highest infant mortality rate in the United States, and the highest rates of preterm births, which is half of non-Hispanic white women and American Indian and Puerto Rican women. And this is based on the healthcare received prenatal. So during their prenatal time, so the healthcare that they're not getting are causing either deaths, infant deaths within the first month. And we are at the highest rates, 2/3 of the population of America, or preterm births due to inadequate healthcare during pregnancy.
So we're just not, basically that information is saying we're just not, our Black women are just not being given the same level of care to make sure that our babies are being born healthy, to check for any pre-existing conditions, things of that nature, or for postpartum care as well.
Right, exactly. Pre and post.
Yeah, that's raw. Anybody who got kids hearing that information, that's just raw. It's raw information to hear. And that's real. That's absolutely real. And that's been well documented over quite a bit of time, actually. Because I know a study that I had checked on that was taken from, it escapes me exactly who did it, but it was covered over something like 20 some odd years, and that number has remained relatively, as a matter of fact, it's gone up, but it's always been, I'm saying it's been constant as far as our population being at the top of that list. So that's one of those stats that you have to kind of shake off after years. Not shake off as in throw away, but of course, but you try not to let the energy of that linger with you.
Right.
Because that's it's part of our population. That makes you wonder why we're still after 20 some odd years, we're still the minority population in the United States. Because I remember maybe 30 some odd years ago, it was like whites, Asians, blacks, Latino, Latinx community. Then something happened, and then we ended up at the bottom. Like their population rose up above us. 2019, there were only 41.99 million out of 330 million. So we're still at that. We're still sitting at that. Something like 13%. Marker, and I don't understand. I really don't understand that. Like, how is it that our numbers are staying so similar over such a large span of time when everybody else is in this country is going up, and it's still steadily going up incrementally, and it's like ain't no way in the damn world we shooting each other that much.
Well, no, that's because of the pregnancy mortality rate. Because we're making them, we're just not coming out of it. Not surviving.
Absolutely. I started following this doctor on TikTok. I just got on TikTok like this, and it's absolutely as addictive as I kid you not. I had started watching at 10 p.m. and I lift my head up. The next thing I know, it's like 2:30. So it's bad. But there's also a lot of really good information on there as well. So there was a doctor that I was just watching earlier today, and kind of like in preparation for this, and I didn't even know I was going to come across it. And he was going back to one of these unwritten rules that they teach in that they're like almost kind of like teaching in medical school. And he was speaking to this particular type of enzyme that everybody's kidneys makes, right? Or it's like a creatinine or something like that. It's one of those enzymes. And he said everybody's kidney makes it, but due to this higher estimation of either the production of it or how it's processed or this, that, and the third, it was basically saying that black people's kidneys work better. And I mean, it might be true because we do stuff pretty much. But at the same time, it was also setting a precedent for people to be like, oh well, they're saying that they're having trouble with their kidneys, but no, we know black people's kidneys don't work as well, so maybe they don't get such a priority on transplants. And that was one of these very long-standing preconceived notions that the medical field had, that we work so well that we don't require, that we don't require treatment even when we say we do. And that's one of those crazy things. I get that we're strong. I get that that we have resilience to us. I'm sure they were looking at us and feel like we tried the indigenous people. We tried the natives. They didn't last as long. We tried working the fields. We didn't last that long. We tried some of the Spanish population. They didn't last that long. But these people, they last out there. They be last out there. We are these magical creatures to them for some reason. But unfortunately, there's a really wicked double standard to that. They're fascinated by us, but at the same time, we're also deemed as being beyond the normal range of treatment, or what should be deemed as treatment, and that's where that notion becomes really dangerous, because when we get hurt, we deserve to be looked at the same as anybody else.
But let me play devil's advocate for a second.
Oh.
So you said uh-oh. So granted, like all of this
you're really good at it.
All of this that we're speaking of is true. However, we have some blame in this as well, because we were taught, hear me out. We were taught hear me out. We were taught growing up and just throughout life itself is that, if you fall, pick yourself up and dust it off. You're good. Don't cry. You're okay. So when you do go to the hospital, or if you see if someone's around you and you see it and you fall and your literally your wrist is hanging off the skin, you're like, no, I'm all right. I'm gonna be all right. So in that same sense, you're going up into the hospital, they see your wrist hanging off a piece of skin, and you like, nah, just tape it up, I'm gonna be okay. So in that sense too, so if they see enough of us who've been conditioned to dust it off and don't cry in the hospitals and the ERs, then they're gonna come up with this thing like, there's some strong. They went through slavery, they were beaten, they were kicked, they were all this, and they're still resilient, and they're coming through these things, and then they come into the hospital with their wrist hanging off a piece of skin. Well, wait a minute now, they must be some strong people. But that's because, and a devil's advocate, hear me out. That's because how often do we tell our children, it'll be okay, don't cry. You'll be fine. You're a big boy. You're a big girl. You'll be all right. We'll put a Band-Aid on and kiss your boo-boo, go play. And then over time, over years, or if you out in the streets and, somebody punch you in your face, you're sitting there with your eye hanging out, but you're tough. You gonna thug it out, right? So then if we're giving them that information when we go into the hospital, what else do they have to go on? Devil's advocate.
You know what else they have to go off of?
What?
Their freaking medical expertise.
Absolutely, but they're people too.
You're not gonna have me coming in with my wrist hanging off, and I'm gonna be like, "Oh, I'm good. I'm good." And you gonna let my assessment of it overrule your medical
But or
expertise?
even if
That
but
is
even if
foolish.
we have that pain
And
chart,
you're absolutely right. You're absolutely right. That is part of the problem.
right?
I was thinking about that. I was
Yes.
thinking if it's a 10, tell your people if it's a 10, say it's a 10.
Say it's a 10. We be like, oh, some bugs. Oh,
But I'm actually about to get the devil's advocate issue on that.
yeah.
Part of the other reason why we try to minimize the level of addressing that we need for our sickness or for our injury is to try and lower that bottom line. We ain't trying to get hit with no bill that we can't handle. So we'll say it's a 7. When it's really 10. We'll say it's a 5 when it's really 10. Why? So that we only get that $300 aspirin instead of a $1,700 MRI.
Right.
You know what I'm saying?
Right.
And then that again points towards one of the larger layers of this, which is the system as far not even just as far as how we get treated, but the resources that we have for treatment. I.e., being like, insurance. Most of us don't have it.
Right.
A lot of us don't have it. As a matter of fact, it's something like 7 out of. I think it's definitely tipping up now. I'll pull it up. But we're very disproportionately uninsured compared to everybody else. We are extremely disproportionate in that regard. Which means if we ain't on that charity care list, which is already long because most of us are on it already, if we're not on that, if we're not lucky enough to, I won't say lucky, but if we're not fortunate enough to have, to be part of companies that have halfway decent, healthcare that we're paying into, which is another problem in and of itself. We ain't trying to go and pay full out. No, not. They'll give you a cup of water and be like, yeah, that was $125. Is this water about to fix what? Is that what that just did?
Right.
IV is not that advanced that for you to put me on an IV drip, like every drip is like $5. Pour it in my hand. I'll fix it. Seriously. Or we just don't go. And we suffer at home, and we suffer within our communities because um either one or both of those is in place, and in most cases it's both. We don't have the means to cover it, and we know even if we do go, it's not going to be something that's going to be that's going to be addressed correctly.
So do we say then that it is the healthcare system that's
Large and above, yeah, they've done it. They have done a very very good job of setting a precedent, and then also uh, layering it enough that on most of those levels we can't get to it. We can't get to that that level of care that we need. And part of it is education on the doctor's parts, where they're telling them, hey, you're going to heal everybody, of course, but the rules do change a little bit when you get people of color, because they're basically superhuman, so you don't need to do so much. And that's it's great. And it's not even to say that there isn't some scientifically proven fact that we do function a little bit different, but not so. It shouldn't be such a difference that that care gets denied us. All right. But if you see me with a tumor, and you see me with a tumor, and you see a white guy with a tumor, and they're in the exact same place, the exact same type of tumor, you better not look at me and be like, "Oh, he'll be okay for another month." So we don't have to do anything like that. We don't have to put him on. We ain't got to put him on chemo just yet. But then y'all rush the white guy in. You gonna be okay, Mr. Johnson? Like, yeah, it just hurts right here. They're kissing his boo boo and stuff like that, and I'm still sitting in the waiting room. And they're looking at me like, so would you like a Tylenol for that? And I'm looking at them like it's a freaking tumor. No, I don't. No, I don't. I want you to put me in the same room as white boy over here. Point blank, period. So yeah, but yeah, anybody else want to share their? I know we went really hard on that first question. Yeah, damn. But yeah, anybody else want to share their thoughts and feelings on just the overall care system before we move on? Because it's a lot. I knew it was going to be a lot. If not, um, next question, which is definitely going to be, which I think is definitely going to be something for us to dive into. What level of rights or knowledge do we have to kind of like address this? What have we in the advent of this being more prevalent of a situation, um, as far as like media coverage and so on and so forth. But this is something that we've always kind of known in our communities. What level of knowledge do we now possess that perhaps maybe we didn't prior, or what level of um, awareness of our rights in terms of what we can ask for, what we can request, demand of the medical system? What do we have in our toolkit to kind of address this? And that's for everybody. I would say first and foremost, the fact that it is more that the facts surrounding how we have been treated is a little bit more prevalent. I think there's that. I think um, our knowledge of there being alternative methods to healing, or maybe if not outright alternative, then maybe what's the word? Supplementary forms of healing that can go along with it. So maybe we're not putting our care completely in the hands of the system as it is, and we're finding alternative methods. We have more naturalists now than I think we've ever had before. We have more therapists. We have more people. We had people like, and you can call it what it is. We had people like Dr. Sebi that made a real name for himself as far as suggesting a lot of things, and you still have a lot of people. So many years after his passing, you still have a lot of people that stake their claim on his therapies being useful and his therapies being effective. You know, you have. I'm trying to think of some of the other things. We have things like acupuncture. Right? That wasn't 30 years ago, 30, 40 years ago. That wasn't a thing. Now it is definitely one of these other modes that people will go to instead of just going to the hospital or going to their physician and they're saying, well, you have this imbalance, you have to take these pills that fix the one problem but give you four others, which I can't stand.
Mm-hmm.
So we have those. We definitely have those means in place. Nene, what's your take on what's some other things that we have to kind of like fight against that? I guess.
Yeah, no, I agree with exactly what you said. I think that because we have the holistic healings, we have, and I think that they've become a huge part of our community now because of the healthcare system, because we don't get treated fairly in the healthcare system. So a lot of people, not a few people, are going to the holistic side. I think the more we learn about our diets, and you're seeing a lot more vegetarians and vegans and stuff like that, and the just healing at home or holistically or the vapor rub or whatever that I think that we have that knowledge, but we didn't have that necessarily back 50, 60 years ago. So people like Dr. Sebi that's given us the information, and just us listening to and watching like documentaries like What the Health, and seeing that our health is directly contributed to our diets. And I think because we've become more knowledgeable now, and I know that the numbers are still high because it's not just so long ago that all this has come out, but I think just with the alternative medicine, the holistic healing, just the natural health care, that we've become more aware of that. It's new. We're still trudging on it, but I think in another 50 or so years, a lot more people will, be on that bandwagon, hopefully. And we won't have to deal with the hospitals and healthcare and the insurance and all that, because we'll, be doing it at home, taking care of ourselves and just taking care of our diets. And if you think about it, a lot of the stuff outside, obviously, of a broken leg or something broken or whatever, is related to your diet. A lot of times we say, diabetes runs in my family, or hypertension runs in my family. No, the only thing that's running in your family is the diet, the foods that you're eating, that you're passed on from your grandmother to your mother and all that. And you're eating the same food, so you're gonna have the same ailments.
Mm-hmm. I'm about to get in trouble, but I'm gonna say stop eating the chitlins
and them pig's feet.
I'm gonna say it.
And that ribeye that is so juicy.
Y'all could try and take away my black heart if you want to, but I said what I said.
Yeah, it's a lot. And I'm making up numbers now, so don't quote me on it. But a lot of them, I'm about to say 99%, like 80% of that 70% has a lot to do with your diet. Like, you can't sit here and say, I'm going to put a pound of butter and some fried eggs to be okay tomorrow morning. No, like that stuff, and it carries over. So again, and I was watching a video the other day where a lot of people say, oh, it runs in my family, and we have high cholesterol in the family and high blood pressure in my family. No, the only thing that's running in your family are those family recipes with those same ingredients that's passing on from generation to generation. Diabetes and all, some obviously is hereditary, but for like high blood pressure and stuff like that, the only commonality is the diet. And we have to break that chain. We have to stop.
You are absolutely correct. You and I mean, we've spoken a lot, and it is very much proven in medicine, both by the establishment and also by third parties. What you take in over the course of your life, your genes, they keep a record of that. And Marcia, thank you for that point, Marcia. Mental health and stress, that definitely has another aspect to it. Which, by the way, is something that we're definitely going to be covering in our first masterclass, which will be on the YouTube channel next Sunday, which is dealing with mental health in the community. We actually put together a really knockout panel for that. So it's me and it's me holding down the men's spotlight. We have 4 fantastic women around to discuss it. So I will be in the best place in the world talking about this stuff with people who are definitely passionate and driven about it. So shameless plug, but that's also part of what we're here to do. So, but I'm not ignorant of the fact of the whole concept of genetic medicine, right? You put we've seen it in mothers who take drugs, who then have babies who have a predisposition to addiction, or a predisposition to, or a very high sensitivity to whatever drug mom was on, or that family of drugs that mom was on. No different. What you put in your body does take a record of. The things that you experience, your body does take a record of. You have had a lifetime of anxiety, and then you have a kid. your kid's going to be predispositioned to having to be anxious. No different with the food. Part of why a lot of us have issues with hypertension is because we were taking in high salt content foods, which was jacking up, which was messing with our blood pressure. Why we end up, subsequent generations ended up with a predisposition for hypertension, with a predisposition for heart disease, with a predisposition for diabetes if there was a high sugar content to it, and so on and so forth. So there's an absolute. It's not even like a maybe anymore. This is information that is very much more so now readily available for public consumption and consideration. And I think one of those major tools that we have is the fact that more and more Black people are slowly looking at, the history of what's happened, and then are making changes to say, you know what, I understand that this is where I'm at, but I'm going to start making these changes so that the generation after me doesn't have to go further down that hole. It may not rectify it fully, but it's stopping blood. It's stopping the loss of blood, and then we can start building towards moving towards getting out of that hole. So that's amazing. I think that's amazing. I think the last thing that we have that I can think of at our disposal with that is just understanding what our rights are within the system, like actually having knowledge of what your medical rights are. I reserve the right to be treated by an impartial physician. I don't have to take the first diagnosis that's given to me by a doctor. If I feel anything, and your intuition should tell you some stuff by now. You have a doctor coming at you with, just this one diagnosis. You have every right to say, what are my other options? Not my possible other options. I want you to talk to me about every possible option to approach this situation, and that is available to me by an impartial system. So, and they are most physicians. I think we'll honor that. Some may try to skirt around it, I'm sure, but having that dogged determination, be an asshole in the hospital. Be that person that's going to not settle for anything less than having all the information that you could possibly get, so that you can make an informed decision about how you wish to proceed. And if they say, I don't know if it's something that you could do, but I don't think it's a good idea given your situation. Well, what's my situation? Is my skin not fair enough for you to be able to do this procedure? Is that what you're telling me? Because I heard you talking to the person in the next room over about the same situation. What's the true difference? So being able to say that and not just walking away with that first answer, getting a second opinion, requesting or even demanding to get all of the possibilities surrounding your care. That's a very powerful thing that we have, and I don't think enough of us use it. But I think more of us. I absolutely think more of us should.
Why do you think we don't?
I think some of us are. Now you trying to dip into the psychological part of it. I think some of us are actually predisposed. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with it, but I think from a psychological perspective, when we go into environments like that, we also have a predisposition to kind of fall away to authority, where we don't where we end up not challenging it, and we think that because the doctor did that, there's a thing. They say they're supposed to be here to treat everybody. I think part of it is naivete, and part of it is preconditioned to defer to authority in situations such as that. And that's something that has to be I won't say done away with, but I think a better balance can be established. yes, they are a medical professional. Yes, they've done the years of service and the residencies. They've done the pre-med, they've done the med, they've done, their clinicals and all that stuff. And they have all this knowledge, at their fingertips. And you have the right to press them to utilize all of that knowledge for your benefit. So when they come to you with option one, a lot of us should be looking at them like, okay, I know that you're a professional in this, which means I understand that you are aware of many ways that this can be addressed. You're going to share them with me, all of them. And then I'll let you know which one I feel comfortable with, that you, as the medical professional, will then be able to render.
Devil's advocate.
Fire away.
So if you're saying that we're not doing all of these things, or we're not doing all these things enough, then how can we, again, point the finger to the health? I understand, yes, they're professionals. They should know. We're all humans. We all bleed. We all feel. But if we're not going in there, from my experience and just what I know, a person that's not Black or that, that's white or whoever, they're going to go and they're going to ask questions. From that sense of entitlement, they're going to demand a second opinion. They're going to go and they're going to say all these things, whereas we're afraid to ask the questions because they're the doctors. We've been taught, they're the doctors. Listen to what the doctor says. If the doctor gives you 15,000 prescriptions for your one condition, then you take it because the doctor knows what he's doing, and you should take all those prescriptions, as opposed to, for example, changing your diet. So if we are not stepping up and doing these things, devil's advocate, if we are not stepping up and doing these things, then how can we say, tisk, 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 shame on you, healthcare system? Or tisk, 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 shame on you, doctor? If we are not going in there and putting our foot down and asking those hard questions, demanding a second opinion, saying that, no, you're not going to diagnose me with this thing until I get this second opinion from the doctor. You're not going to give me all this blood pressure pill and this water pill and all this other pill that I'm going to take without me questioning. Like, how can we then say, shame on you, doctor?
Okay. Looks like Yolanda has a response to that.
Go ahead, Yolanda.
Yolanda, please, by all means. But before I
well, I told you earlier, and I said this was going to be a very touchy subject, but I have to weigh in because it's not just our doctors and our medical professionals. It's not just their responsibility. That's just like saying teachers are basically primarily in charge of our kids' education, when we know that that's not the case.
Right.
Okay, so what I'm going to say, and it might be ugly and you might not agree, but this is the thing.
Come on with it. Come on with it.
Here's the thing. If it's an education thing, and it started from, like years ago where, we didn't go to the doctor and they did the health remedies and, the home remedies and things like that because there was not money in the budget to be able to do that. Okay, so you fast forward, 20, 30 years ago, our people, they're now going to college, they're completing colleges, they're now not just in a poverty situation, they're more so in a middle class situation. So there's that education there. So, and when I say that, it's because, your kids are going to the dentist, they're going to the doctor, they're doing follow-ups, they have that relationship with the doctor. Because here's the thing, if you don't have a relationship with the doctor, you have no idea where you stand. You don't know your numbers. You don't know what your blood pressure is. You don't know any of that information. So if our people are not educated that they need to do these things, to be able to do that research, if a doctor says, okay, you have hypertension or you have blood pressure, how many people actually get that phone out or get on the computer and go and read and do the research to find out, okay, this is what hypertension is. This is what hypertension comes from. I know this is what the doctor said, but how many people actually go home and research and get that information for themselves? Because that's the piece. Because, and another thing is when you go to the doctor, you go to the hospital, they always give you that thing of patient rights. And it's a lot of words, but think about how many people actually read it and understand, comprehend what their rights are. Being able to ask for a second opinion, to be able to ask for a copy of their medical records. You think about that, most people don't read, and I'm sorry, but it's the truth. In regards to, health insurance and, being able to navigate that's a monstrous animal when it comes to health insurance. But one of the things that I learned years ago when my kids were younger, I worked for a hospital system and signing up for benefits, when open enrollment comes. And so they actually had a lady come around and talk to new employees to talk about, navigating health insurance, being able to pick out the best health insurance for your family, for your particular needs. And I thank God for her, because this is what she hit me with. Have you ever heard of flexible spending? You know what flexible spending is?
I do. I know that now. Yeah.
Okay. Think about how many people don't know what flexible spending is, but I'm going to tell you right now, the knowledge of knowing what flexible spending is and what you can utilize it for saved me and my kids, because you had the eye doctor, you had the dentist, you had prescriptions. God forbid they did sports, because if they got hurt, oh my Lord, then you're going to the ER. Okay, so you have your health insurance. You have what the health insurance is going to cover, but then you have this piece of what's not covered by the health insurance, and that's where your flex spending comes in. You can use that for your prescriptions, the parts of the bill that the insurance does not cover, all of those different types of things. And you have different types of health insurance. You have your HMOs, or you have the 80/20s, to where the health insurance will pay the 80 and then you have to pay the 20, but then you still have your deductible. And God forbid you haven't had anything major, because before they're going to pay anything, you have X amount of dollars that you have to pay up before the insurance company is going to pay anything. So there's so many avenues and so many different pieces to that. And again, it's an education thing that we have to instill within our community, because if they don't ever learn it, you can't expect them to go into these doctor's offices talking about, well, no, I want a second opinion. They're not going to know that they should ask for one. They're going to take that information because he is the doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm not a medical person. I have no idea. I'm going to take his word for it. It's an education thing. We have to advocate for ourselves, but if no one tells us that that's what we should be doing, I mean, how is the system going to change?
I agree. Yeah. And where do we get that from? Where do we get that education from? Like, this panel now, obviously we're here, we're talking about it, and we know that, and hopefully the people on this panel can go out, and this is the purpose of why Chad and I put this forum together. So the people that are here can take the information and give it to the people that are out there. But on a bigger scale, on a larger scale, how do we do that? Like, how do we reach so many people who need to have the education to say, okay, I need to read my rights as a patient. I need to do all these things. What steps do we need to take, or what steps can be taken for that to happen?
There are a lot of ways that can happen, starting with this platform that somebody had their hand up? I'll wait.
I'm double checking. Did you have a response to that?
Yeah, but Yolanda can go. I'm just going to piggyback probably off of what she said. She kind of hit the nail on the head when she said, they give you the information. It is your responsibility to read over it and ask the appropriate questions. When I was younger, very quiet young lady. I'm not like that anymore. When you know better, you're supposed to do better. If the information is being provided to you, I mean, I understand that some people were not taught that. We have to teach our children to do that. That comes with like asking questions in class, asking questions I remember my husband said that when he, and it's related to what we're talking about, when he applied for financial aid when it was time for him to go to school, his parents, because they were much older, they didn't, and neither of them, I think, had gone to college. They didn't know, how to help him fill out the application. So he had to use that village that they have, like cousins that had already gone to college, an aunt that had a child that had gone to college, to help him fill out the application. So that kind of goes into what Yolanda was saying in terms of asking questions. She said that her doctor sat with her and told her or explained to her, you know, I guess what type of insurance she should pick, what was going to best meet her family's needs. I ask questions all the time. I will call a 1-800 number. I will flip that insurance card over. When I ask questions in terms of my children's education, if my child is having an issue with this, are they going to have summer enrichment? People don't ask questions, and Yolanda is right. I'm not going to say only our people, but because I hate to talk about my people, but it's true. Like, we don't ask questions. We just wait for someone to give us something. No one's just going to drop something in your lap. You have to be, what is it called? Proactive. You have to be proactive. Yeah. When you want to know something, you have to ask a question. Yeah. Excuse me, Dr. So-and-so, I don't understand X, Y, and Z. I had a doctor, he's deceased now, that there was like some research that was talking about like people of color having low vitamin D, like a vitamin D deficiency or something. Anyway, long story short, I remember him telling me to take a particular type of vitamin D, and it wasn't vitamin D3. I did my own research. I went online and I looked to see, you know, yes, I have a deficiency. It was a significant one. And which type of vitamin D should I be taking? And then when I went back to him the next, for the follow-up visit, I said, listen, you prescribed X, Y, and Z. Well, my research, he actually smiled. He actually smiled, like kind of smirked and was like, okay, you're doing your work. This is what's going into my body. You know, so I agree with Yolanda. You do have to ask questions. And a lot of us don't want to read, and we don't want to ask questions, and we don't want to do that extra work.
Absolutely.
I think that's it on. I need to come up with like a mic drop. When y'all start doing that, when y'all start going in, I'm gonna just post it up. I'm gonna just hold up. It's gonna be a physical sign. I'm gonna just cover my face and just have it sitting there.
I want to say this though, Chad. This is a little bit off topic. Whenever I speak, after I speak, you have this look on your face. Like, sometimes I'm confused. Like, did I say too much? Did I go off topic? It's okay to reel me in. Just do like a real one.
Okay, you know what? I will definitely address that. You've been with us since the beginning. I want to say
pretty much, yeah.
I cannot think when it comes to you. I cannot think of any time where you have not spoke, where you have not given me something to think about, and that's what that face is. It's like, it's a processing phase. It really is. And that's why I think I started saying the mic drop, because I think it was either you or sometimes our other participants, Tanisha, and y'all come through with this wonderful array of stuff. So one, it's definitely not just you, but since you brought it up, that is where that comes from. It's just like, wow. That's what that is.
Okay.
And yes, that's what that is. And same thing to you, Yolanda. I realized what was happening now while you were while we were going through the show. You was just letting stuff build up, and
yes,
she she got to the point where it's like,
I can't take it anymore.
Yes. She mashed that mute button was like, I got something to say.
Hey, yes, I saw it. All their things.
I'm gonna say it. She got real intense. This is what happens.
Yes.
And I'm sorry.
No, I was listening intently. I was gonna let you guys, have your say, but then I was just like, oh yeah, I just can't. I just can't sit here anymore. I just can't do it.
She had that like Rafiki putting that sign over Simba's thing in The Lion King. He was like, "It is time."
I just, my experience with healthcare has been, I guess, a lot different than other people. You know, especially, you know, finding African-American doctors that, you know, truly care about, you know, our people and our health, or, you know, finding doctors, period, not just, you know, African-American ones that love what they do. They care about helping people regardless of, you know, race, religion, color, background, ethnicity, those kind of things. So, you know, for me, you know, it's been different than a lot of people that get turned away at the door, or, you know, they felt that they were, you know, mistreated because they did not have insurance in the doctor's office, you know, those kind of things. And I can't overlook those things because I know they happen. I just have to say that was not my experience. 2013, I wasn't feeling well. I go to the doctor, and, you know, they run every kind of test that they possibly could, you know, and I say this to people, and I tell people, and I said, my A1C was 19.8. My blood pressure was sky high. It was stroke level. And I said that was 2013. So, my doctor wanted to put me in the hospital. Yeah. Oh wow. She said, oh wow. My doctor wanted to put me in the hospital because that was like stroke level, and it was right after my ex-husband and I had just separated, and I just like broke down in the doctor's office. I said, I can't afford to be in the hospital. I'm all my kids have. And I says, whatever you tell me to do, I'll do. You want me to stop eating this? I'll stop eating it. And I says, but, you know, give me the opportunity to fix it. So I'm going to say that was 2013, and here we are 2021, and I'm 165 pounds lighter than I was then. You know, my A1C is now 5.7. I'm not where I want to be, but I thank God that I'm not where I was back in 2013. But again, it was an education thing. It was a daily thing. It was a life-changing moment for me because I wanted to be there for my kids, and I wanted to be there for my grandchildren. And so when I say that, you know, most people, their doctors say, okay, this is what it is. This is what I need you to do. And then they're like, okay, yeah. And then they go home, and it just goes in and it goes out. My doctor made me go see him every 3 months. And so when I say that, it's an accountability thing. It's sort of like your gym partner, somebody that's going to work out with you. It was an accountability thing. Every 3 months, he was testing my blood. He was putting me on the scale, and we're discussing, you know, how I'm feeling, you know, how's my body reacting to the medication, this, that, and the other. And a lot of people's like, oh, I'm not worrying about that. You know, before I go to the doctor, I just take a couple of extra doses of my medication and I go. People have said that. And I said, you did what? I don't even understand. But here's the thing. You can't fake that. He's taking your blood. I'm going to tell you, and I tell people this all the time. Whatever you've done in that 90 days, guess what? It shows up in your blood. You taking a double dose of your medication the night before you go to the doctor, it's still there. Mm-hmm. He knows exactly what you've done, and he knows what you have not done. So that was an accountability thing. I knew that in 90 days, I was going back to the doctor. He was going to take my blood, and he was going to sit there and be like, Yolanda. And I didn't want to hear that. I was like, because I'm like, all right, I'm going to do what I have to do. So there's a lot of things. Sugar, y'all got to get that stuff up. Stop eating that stuff. It's not good for you. The bread, the potatoes, the rice, you got to let it go in moderation. I will say that. But the sugar, just definitely don't use that. But the other stuff within moderation. You know, does that mean that I won't have a cookie? I just found the Girl Scouts outside of Walmart. I had me some Girl Scout cookies. But on the top of that,
okay.
I drink water a day. Right. But I'm gonna have my Girl Scout cookies. So I'm just gonna let you know. I'm still but it's within moderation. So there are like different things that people have to do. You have to read. You know, I eat green every day. My spinach. You know, my kale, you know, avocado. I eat all my veggies every day. And I start eating them first thing in the morning. Like when I'm scrambling my eggs, I have my spinach, I have my peppers, my onions. At lunchtime, I'm having a salad. And people's like, oh my God, I can't believe you. And I was like, hey, guess what? people, you need to, it's an education thing. But getting back to how we get that message out there, I'm here in Indiana, so we have different health fairs, and my church does one. It's in the community. And so you have different health people that come out, your nurses, they do blood pressure, they take all your vitals while you're there at the health fair. You have people, they have different breakout sessions to actually give people to do this information. And also with my church, within our women's ministry, we have different speakers that come in periodically to talk to our congregation about these types of things, about patients, right? So we have doctors in our church, nurses, all different kinds of medical professions within our congregation, and they willingly come in and they speak and they'll do it for free. So, if you're trying to figure out how to start it, I would start there.
I feel like you are this low key med professional, and you just didn't tell me.
I'm not.
I feel deceived a little bit because there's all this wonderful information. I'm messing with you, of course. But,
I know.
This is but that's a really solid thing. You took your situation. And I know all about A1Cs. And just for the record, if you do know, what is the normal range that A1C, which has to do with your cholesterol?
Your A1C,
what's your A1C
is
supposed to be at?
the sugar content in your blood, and it should be around 6 point something. That's where it should be on average. It should be 6 point something.
So almost 3 times. You were at almost 3 times the average.
6 times. Yeah. Like I said, mine was 19.8. It was bad. My blood pressure, normal blood pressure is 130 over 70. That's what they say. Well, mine was like 180 over, and that bottom number, it wasn't even 2 digits. It was 3. It was like 100 or something. When I say it was bad, it was bad. They wanted to just my doctor's office is right across the street from the hospital. They just wanted to have somebody come and just wheel me across the street and check me in, and I was just like, absolutely not. We're not doing that. We're just not. No, can't do it. But like I said, it's a life change. But it's also an education thing, because that's when I began to do my research, and not every diet is right for everyone else. So you have to research what is best for your body.
Right.
You just have to.
Yeah.
I think that's a very excellent point. We have touched on in a lot of our previous sessions, previous episodes. We touched on the need, and I'm talking from kind of like this macro level, real quick. So bear with me. But for a lot of the issues that we've discussed here in this space, a very crucial and repeated aspect that we get onto is this need for us to have a deeper understanding of ourselves. And I'm dipping into the psychological here because we can't do blanket statements anymore. We can't have that monolith mentality where it's just like, oh well, black people is black people is black people. It has to be us understanding to a more specific degree what our makeup is. I might come from a family that historically didn't do pork a whole lot. Like, we did more seafood. I happen to have a serious predisposition towards seafood. Come to find out, ancestrally, I'm from Cameroon. If you know anything about Cameroon, that's Portuguese for shrimp, because that's one of the major exports of the country, and that's one of the staple foods of part of my ancestral home. I wouldn't have known that if I hadn't, done the work and gotten the DNA test that proved that. So then I understand that's something that I come off of, that I come by honesty, by virtue of the life's path that brought me here. And with that knowledge, I can then be better informed to say, well, this is what I can do. This is what I can do with seafood. This is what I shouldn't do with seafood. This is what I can. These are the things that I can, operate within. Because I have that framework of knowledge. So, for all of us, going back to Yolanda's story, how she took that information and she didn't just sit with him and be like, well, okay, doctor, okay, I'll do this and I'll do that and this, that, and third. She got more proactive, and Keisha talked about being proactive. Marcia talked about being more proactive, and I'm seeing in the chat. We're all talking about going, not just sticking with what's given, but taking what's given and using that as a catalyst to go further and say, okay, well, this is what's happened. Let me sit down and go over what my decisions have been in this area. Taking that into consideration, let me go more so into why I made those decisions in those areas, and that takes us places, and it allows us to get that sense of information that we can come back to that medical situation. We can come back to that condition. We can come back to that seizure, to that injury, and say, now I'm armed with this. Yes, this happened. Yes, this is something that I have to deal with. But because I took more steps than just what was given to me, I can customize. I can streamline. I can really ramp up how I can approach these things. And I think if more of us did that, not only would we have less instances of where we would have these episodic things, but in the case where we do, because it's not like we can stop absolutely everything. In the case where we do have to engage the medical field or the healthcare field, we have this information to come with us to say, look, doc, I know you're a medical professional, but I also know this about myself. I know this about my family. This is my family history. This is what I have. This is what I know. If you're going to diagnose me, you have to take this into consideration. This is what I have, and that's a major thing. That's a major thing to be able to do. So, how do we get to that point? Putting stuff like this out, putting panels like this out, taking the information that's been coalesced here by the wonderful efforts of everybody here involved, and being able to say, well, this is what I gathered from them, and this is what I can share with them. So that's something that leads me into our last question for tonight. What area in anybody's opinion, of course, this is for anybody to answer. What do you feel is the most important area to improve on when it comes to how we're handling our health, how we're handling our involvement with medicine, how we're handling our involvement with healthcare? And I feel like we're already kind of sort of answering it now, but just to put it out as a general net question, what would you guys say is the most important thing to tackle when it comes to our community's involvement with medicine and healthcare?
I'm gonna say, and this is just from me being not new to it, but taking the steps of getting healthier, and my health, and being 42 in 2 weeks. So it's kind of like at that point where I have to pay attention to it. First and foremost, obviously education and knowing what my rights are, and going to the doctor and say, okay, you know this and know that. But I find it so important that we have to monitor our diets, the food that we eat, the sugar intake, all that stuff that we're so accustomed. Yes. Like we have to, and I can say this about my brother-in-law Eric, who's on. Like he eats to, am I saying this right? He eats to live. He doesn't live to eat.
Yes.
So, and what sometimes it's like he'll be eating stuff. I'm like, I just ask me that. But but it's because it's a source of energy for him. It's not because it tastes good or something that, is supposed to be, enjoy. I mean, yes, he's not gonna eat nothing disgusting. But for the most part of it, when I've known him for years, since I was 16 years old, but when he was like working out and doing stuff like that, the food was to supply energy. The food was a purpose of doing something. It wasn't because it tastes good. It wasn't because, it was something that, he sat on the couch with his legs up in the chair and it was a comfort food. It was a source of energy for him. And I think if we change our mindset and how we intake the food and the food that we eat, and like Yolanda was saying, she's having her greens at every single meal. She's paying attention to what her body needs, and she's taking that and thank God, she's in a better spot than she was in 2013 by taking her water, that which is so important, and eating her greens, which is so important. So I think that not only educating ourselves, but also our diet, the stuff that we eat, we have to be very mindful of that and changing that mindset. Like, yes, you can have a strawberry, a Girl Scout cookie, or my thing, I love I love chocolate cake. So yes, I can have the chocolate cake, but I don't have to have an entire slice in one sitting. Like, I can take all pieces, satisfy that craving, and then move on. But I think changing the mindset and knowing that using food as a source of energy, as opposed to a source of yes. So I think that those are two. If I can name two things, those are two things that are two areas that we can work on, and then we don't have to visit the doctor as often. We don't have to go, because we're healing ourselves. And literally, I've seen people talk about. There's this person that my sister introduced me to, Lakeisha, where Tabitha Brown, where she's vegan now. She's been vegan, I think 2 or 3 years or something like that. Where she is awesome. She was literally on the verge, like on her deathbed, and she went vegan, and she's she's a beautiful soul. She is so healthy, and so she's just changing her diet, fix it. And that's very important. Like, we change our diet does so much. Health and wellness, it ties so much into our diet. And then I'm done. So yes, I think diet and educating ourselves are so important. But that's what I'm saying, for myself, just to know that I'm 42. Like, I can't be doing what I did when I was 20. Like, it's not gonna work. My body's like, child, you need to change it. So I think those two things are very important. Sorry, I'm done. So I
don't know why y'all be apologizing. Why y'all be apologizing? Like, that's good.
Because that was a rant. Like, that was a rant.
Does that not be what we do here in this space?
Yes, we do.
Okay. That's good. Y'all stop apologizing for y'all truth. That's this is good.
One of the things that I think is very important is the water. And a lot of people don't realize that drinking the water will reduce your cravings for all the sweets. There's a couple things. Sleep. Sleep is very important, especially when you get older, because I'll be 52 this year. So, but
where?
What?
Where?
Yeah, it's there. It's on my driver's license.
Right.
But
you ma'am, sit on the throne of lies.
I sit on the throne, but not of lies. So sleep is very important, because if you don't get enough sleep, what happens is when you're up going through your day, whether it's work, going to work out, going to school, whatever it is, your body is getting tired. And so what's the first thing that people want to do when they get tired? They start craving the sweets. And so they're picking up the candy bar, they're picking up all of this sugar, because their body is tired, and you need that energy. Your body's looking for that energy, that quick fix to get me through this meeting I have at 2:00. And that your body's like, I'm going to crash. You grab the sugar. What a lot of people don't realize is that the water alleviates the cravings for the sugar. And when I say that to people, they're like, no. Try it. Don't believe me? Give it a shot. The water alleviates the cravings for the sugar. So you're not hitting the vending machine. You're not grabbing the gummy bears, the Snickers, chocolate covered marshmallows, because that is the thing, you guys. I just want you to know.
Yes.
The chocolate covered marshmallows, I do eat them. I just not as much as I used to. I mean, but the water helps. It's not like more so I just have to have it. It's more so I've been so good, I'm going to reward myself and I'm going to go ahead and eat that.
I got you.
Absolutely.
I'll make this addendum to it because I have a history of avoiding just plain water like the plague. It is just as much as I logically understand that it's necessary for my function. Just plain old water is the most boring thing in the world. So then I'm educating myself in how to make like my own alkaline water, adding lime and coconut, pineapple, ginger, and so you're adding stuff to the water. You're adding stuff to the water, but you're also not taking it. You was making fun of it the other day. It was like, that look thick, Chad. What you drinking?
It looked like juice. I don't know what was in it. It looked like brown juice.
It was pineapple. It was pineapple and ginger and lime and coconut. It was like, no. And I was like, yes, because I'm taking down almost a gallon of this a day, because I can do it. Like I found a way to get past my mental hurdle of looking at water like, you're so boring. Why do I have to drink you? And then finding a way to not only get that in, but also get more than that in. As far as making alkaline water, and then also satisfying that kind of like that pleasure center that I have, which is like it has to taste good. It has to taste good. So I think I've probably had, as far as like a regular thing, I've probably had more water in the last year than I've had in the last 5.
Wow.
And that's not even exaggerating.
Right.
As far as being a regular. And I am seeing and feeling a change to it. So look at it. Marcia said add mint. I bet.
I made actually the other day.
Loves it.
Yeah, I lemon, lime, mint, ginger, and cucumber, and let it sit in there overnight.
Yes.
Really good. Really good.
I'm with it.
Yeah.
I'm with it. They said I love the topics and everyone's responses. Well, we love the fact that you love it. No doubt.
Can I add one additional thing? This is Marcia.
Of course.
Yes, you may.
I do. I'm sure you guys can tell just from my comments, but I'm a huge advocate of mental health. So I think part of health and wellness is not just if you're sick, it's just keeping your mind in a steady place and just adding happiness to your life where you can. So whether it's exercise, meditation, prayer, however you go about doing it, I think it's important to incorporate that in your daily routine as well.
I think you're absolutely right. I think making sure that we're not just addressing one facet of our wellness is important, and if anything, there should be a precedent on our mental well-being, because that's actually higher in the hierarchy of how we're designed and how we function. Everything starts in the mind. The body doesn't do anything without the mind being in place to tell it so. Even for some of those automatic things that we don't consciously think about, we don't sit there and consciously think about breathing. Otherwise, most of us, there'd be a lot of us suffocating to death with all the stuff that's on our mind. Which is why I believe we were designed to be able to handle some of these things automatically. But that even with that being said, I think there is a question of efficiency that we can address with that, and it is just as important for us to be mindful of what we are taking in and what we're doing with our bodies, as it is for us to make sure that that our mental and that our emotional, and yes, even our spiritual sense of self is in place as well, because it's very much proven that our emotional state does have bearing on the body. You're angry for too long. What do you feel happening? You know, you get that rush of adrenaline, and then afterward, if you've been angry for an extended amount of time, you're tired as hell by the time you come out of it, because you're pushing that anger, that emotion, it pushes your body to to an extent and whatnot. And anger it's an intangible thing, but it has a very real physical effect on us, and a very real physical influence on us. So you're absolutely right, Marcia. And pushing to make sure that we are even-handed in our approach to wellness, physically as well as mentally. Stress management, positive thinking, learning how to cope with things in a healthy manner. I think that's super important and very much crucial to the Black community, because of all the stuff that we have endured. And it's not an issue of that we've endured more than anybody else, but it's also been systemic, and it's been repetitive, pervasive. That's what I'm thinking about. It's been systemic and very pervasive. So for us to figure out what we need to do in the mental and emotional space, with that being the truth of our situation, that's just as important as us understanding what we need from a medical perspective and from a physical perspective. So yeah, absolutely true. Anybody else with some final thoughts on what area needs to kind of like be tackled first, or what area you feel is most important to address with this? Not that too much else needs to be said. Y'all pretty much covered all the bases and whatnot. I can't even say that I really have anything else to add on that either because y'all came through with the fullness, and with mic drops across the board. I love y'all, and also can't stand y'all. But it's. I'm glad you know what? I'm glad that you're muted, Yolanda. I don't even know if I want to know what you're saying right now. I'm glad you're muted. But yeah. So with that being said, just you know what? Take all of this. We say that every week. Mm-hmm. We say that every week, but take this. Take this from what we've said thus far. When we get the video up, take that. If you can think of anybody that would benefit from hearing this discussion, and maybe it'll change their approach on something. And that's all you need. Any positive step forward is still a step forward, even if it's just not getting that glazed donut this week. But yeah, very much appreciate all of you guys coming into the space tonight and talking about this. Yeah, Yolanda, you called it. You were the first one to say it was going to be a hard-hitting subject, and it absolutely was. But we ain't scared here.
It was a much-needed conversation. A conversation.
We gonna talk about it.
Yeah.
Absolutely. So as always, heading up to closing, you have in the chat, that is our email. If you have any comments, any questions, any concerns, any show ideas, or subjects, topics that you'd like for us to cover, either here in the talk space during our weekly panel, or as something that you want me not to respond or react to on the channel, or even as ideas for future master classes, which I said they're going to be They're going to be starting to roll out this month, starting next Sunday, with our wonderful panel of mental health professionals as we talk about mental health in the community. Since this will be up and since this will be up on YouTube, I have to do the usual like, share, comment, please. Open up, let us open up the space even wider so that we have more, opportunities to move us forward. You know, we do this to not just with our words, but with the actual action of having the space. We want to move us forward. Mm-hmm. You know, we deserve that as a community. We deserve that as a people, and that's really what we do. All the contact information is in the chat. For those of you that will be hearing this on YouTube, you can reach us through our email at himhertalkspacepodcast@gmail.com. himhertalkspacepodcast@gmail.com. You can also find us on Facebook at Him and Her Spaces with Nene and Chad, and Him and Her Talkspace on Instagram, and also the YouTube channel again is Him and Her Spaces. So that's where you can find us. We are now fully doing weekly content. Everything is shareable now. We finally figured out. We joked with y'all last week because we were trying to figure out for like months, like, how do we do this? And then we were like, tell everybody to turn their cameras off, and then we'll put that up. You know. And for those of you that did stay on for camera, we appreciate your presence. We appreciate seeing your face. We appreciate you guys coming through and dropping all this wonderful knowledge and insight on us. And yeah, that's really it. Nene, as always, without forgetting me.
Yes, next week's topic.
Thank you. That's why I ask every week. That is why I ask every week. So next week, a little bit of a deviation from our what we do as far as the macro and community aspect. What do you do when the love is there? We're dipping back up onto the relationship side of things. What do you do when love is gone? Whether that's relationship, whether that's marriage, whatever level of relationship, you happen to be on. What do you do? And this is something that hits home directly for both me and myself. So you guys let them know, let the people know we are coming with that fire next week, and it's gonna get heavy, I'm sure, but in a good way.
Yeah.
In a good way. So that's pretty much everything. So we will see you guys. Like, share, like I said, like, share, and comment in the comments area below for those of you that are going to be seeing this on YouTube. And we will see you next week on Him and Her Talkspace, where, as always, there are 2 coaches,
1 space,
and
0 reservation.
You guys have a wonderful night. God bless.
Thank you so much. Bye. Love you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Not a Thanks, baby.
Yay.